Hey everybody, this is Sheea here in Maui and here to share with you my recent upgrade in health, which has been a pretty rapid process, which has been just really fascinating for me to actually observe myself. So on the 9th of September, I decided to do my first cleanse, and here it is, the 28th. So basically in 19 days ago is when I started officially. I've lost 9 pounds in 19 days, which seems pretty amazing. Especially it is for me, at least. And I noticed during COVID, a lot of, being here in Maui, a lot of us are pretty health conscious, and a lot of my friends were cleansing and fasting around me. And then it was almost like my body was like, well, okay, let's do this. You're ready. You've listened to them, how they do it, what tips they have, what to do when you hit a wall, kind of thing. And it was almost like my body was saying, you're kind of doing it anyway, so let's just make this official. Let's commit to this. So I remember when I thought of doing water fasting, which is what some people hardcore do, which is a little dangerous, certainly to start because that's advanced. So when I thought about, there's so many different kinds of intermittent fasting and cleansing ways to go about it, that when I thought of doing a liquid fast, I was like, I could do that. Like I could manage that just fine, especially when I compared it to thinking of water fasting. So that's what I did. It felt comfortable, and I can tell you it was so easy. I was just vibrationally really ready for it, I think, with all the upgrades I've been doing in my life, and, going towards the vegan or plant-based diet direction, which can take a little bit of time or be a process for some people. But at any rate, I decided to have like liquid smoothies and liquid soup, which were really loaded with a lot of nutrition. So I guess the smoothie would be the raw version of just putting, greens in there and fruit and all my powders, and then I made this amazing like vegetable curry that had so much in it, and then I liquefied it. And it was basically, I think, all the seasonings I put in it that made it so yummy. So I literally had, and thanks to my pressure cooker, I'm able to do this stuff quite rapidly and easily. It feels super easy just to throw it all in that pot, use the pressure cooker. It takes less time than a crock pot. And boom, there you have it. So I threw in tons of awesome vegetables in there with coconut milk as the base of that curry soup that I was making. I threw in a bunch of like fresh herbs and and then of course a lot of great seasoning that just made it taste so good. And I did it all off the top of my head. I didn't have a recipe. I'd never done it before, and it turned out great. And my body was just like, yes, So I just liquefied it and froze it and would pull it out and just put it in my same smoothie bottle by putting like half of it in the bottle and then hot water to fill up the rest of the half, and then mix it up and then just drink it. So that really worked for me, and that 6 days of liquid cleansing was quite easy and fun and effortless, which amazed me because that's what always kept me from doing this before. Is I was like, oh, I'm going to suffer through it. I'm going to be hungry. My blood sugar is going to spike. I'm going to feel weak, and then I'm like not going to want to do this anymore. And that's what my experience in the past was. So I was just not really into it, but my vibration has shifted so much during COVID with all the things that I've been doing spiritually and, physically, that my body was like, come on, we can do this. And so anyway, I did. And then by that 6th day is when I felt like, yeah, I feel complete now. Now I'm going to start suffering if I make myself do longer than that. So anyway, I did lose 5 pounds during that 6 days. So that was definitely welcome, because I'm one of these ones that feels like, it takes a lot to get it to shed. I'm 50 years old, so and it's always been kind of that way for me. So anyway, then I watched the movie What the Health, and I was just like, okay, I'm going vegan. I'm going plant-based. I'm not doing this meat thing anymore. And I was not a big meat eater anyway. I mean, I'd occasionally have bacon or something, but I really wasn't into it. I was just doing it just to have some variety, or doing it because we're taught to get protein in our diet that way, or we've been pretty programmed and, oh, what's the word? Brain, anyway, kind of like taught to do that. Like, you have to have meat or you're not going to make it. Especially, I guess I would worry a little bit if I was working out hard, especially with weights. So, but I never was drawn to it, and it didn't seem like a clean energy to me, honestly. So it really wasn't that hard for me to let go of it. And dairy, I had already let go of anyway. I just have occasional, there's occasionally cheese and something wherever I'm at, but that was pretty much it, because I just know that dairy just feels like it puts weight on me, because I have Cherokee blood, is what one health practitioner said. But, I think dairy pretty much puts weight on everybody. Honestly, it's very mucus creating, and it's very creamy, and, anyway. But I just decided to completely close the door there, too. Like, don't go there at all. So, and I had already been pretty much not eating carbs, as far as like processed, yucky. That just puts weight on everybody too. So you have to be very careful about what carbs are chosen, to make sure they're clean and like an ancient grain that hasn't been messed with GMOs. And and it's not so easy to do that. It's actually better to make your own at home, which is pretty simple when you use a YouTube recipe that's, gluten free. And I haven't done it yet, but I've been able to manage to find a few sources like oats, granola, and I don't know, I've just really been into granola lately. So, things like spelt, I suppose, and millet, are examples. Kamut and, quinoa. But at any rate, I just really cut any. I wasn't really having, like they said, those processed grains or anything anyway, or the dairy really anyway. But the meat I was occasionally, and it seems like a lot of menus out there are based on meat too. And but I just cut it out, and it was probably more so the fact that I added in all the fresh stuff though that made it feel so different. It was like, wow, I'm eating these huge fresh salads with all kinds of sprouts and herbs in them, and chunks of fruit and dried cranberries, and pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, lots of seeds and nuts, and it just made it very interesting and tasty. And it just felt so fresh, because I just wasn't eating enough fresh stuff before. And, I have to say, it's been effortless. And that's what I kind of wanted to say that's so interesting to me. It's like, I'm ready for it. I want it. That's what my body wants. It's been easy and effortless, and none of the suffering or of, oh, I'm doing without, or, oh my God, how do I eat if I'm cutting out all these food groups like breads and grains. Not that I'm cutting out all grains, but most of it is cut out, because so much of the carbs out there are worthless. But it just depends on your attitude, right? You can feel like you're cutting out a lot of, from carbs to dairy to meat. And I remember before thinking, well, then what can I eat? Like, what else is there? But, and then, like many of you, I would often feel like, oh, that's rabbit food. I just can't get into it. I'm not going to be able to, that's not sustainable for me. But it's funny how when your vibration rises, and I think what happened is, it was rising already with everything I was doing, and upgrading little things here and there and going in the direction of plant-based. And then when I finally got to the cleanse, that came super easy and it raised my vibration even more. And so here I was eating liquid. So the thought of going and eating a salad with all these goodies on it after having liquid for 6 days just sounded so great. And it was so easy. And I was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. And my body was like, yes. And it's totally the way to rebuild your gut microbiome, which is really where your metabolism is, your immunity. It's where your second brain is. If your gut is working well, your whole body's working well. So that's the key. And so we all kind of need certain probiotics, which most of them die in the stomach with the acid. And so I found this advanced top of the line one that's affordable that addresses from everything from SIBO to irritable bowel syndrome to candida. They have one for each symptom, and they last all the way till the intestines, and then the probiotics come out of their shell and they do their magic, and they get rid of the pathogens there and take over. And anyway, so I've just been enjoying this, but I wanted to just kind of address the emotional piece, because a lot of people are like, oh, I can't do that. They're so attached. You're so attached to your cheese, or you're so attached to your coffee, or, your bagels, or whatever it is that you're attached to. And it's true that your microbiome, which is your gut, is really what's running your show. And that's why it seems like it would be really hard to change that. And it's really hard to override your microbiome, because when it's telling you, I'm craving this, I have to have this food or I'm not going to survive, you usually give into it, because there's thousands of those bacteria telling you what to eat, and it's hard for you to just not do that. It doesn't typically work. And I noticed that when I eat the way I'm supposed to, then my microbiome changes, and it's able to digest those salads and those raw things when I'm eating that way, because then the bacteria that are meant to feed off of those things show up, and I am able to digest them and work with them really well. Same with beans. People are like, oh, I can't do beans, they make me gassy or whatever. Well, the more you eat them, the more that goes away, because your microbiome changes and your gut is able to handle them because you're eating them on a regular basis, and it fosters the kind of bacteria that are needed to break down the beans. So yeah, it's kind of like you have to eat right first in order to get the right kind of gut you want, and then it's able to digest it that much better. Now, our gut microbiome is fed through raw, fresh food, like fruits and vegetables, herbs, sprouts, especially, is what I'm saying. And that's, if you're not eating enough fresh, you're not getting enough microbiome organisms to break down your food, is what I'm learning. And it feeds off of fiber as well, which is loaded in fruits and vegetables. I mean, that's why I get so full, is because there's so much fiber in them, when I'm eating my salads and whatnot. It's like, wow, you really get full because of all this fiber in this. And that is like a prebiotic. It feeds a healthy gut to have fiber. And I realized I wasn't getting hardly any fiber before, because anything processed or that's not fresh doesn't usually have enough fiber. So beans have a lot of fiber, which is why they're effective, and they have a lot of protein too, and then they're filling because of that. And then it's same with fruits and vegetables. Mainly vegetables seem to have a lot of that fiber, when you're eating them raw especially. And you can have them cooked too, just don't overcook them. And but as far as the microbiome, gut bacteria and all that makes you be able to digest and have a good metabolism, it's the fresh stuff that's doing the job there. So just wanted to inspire anyone who needed to hear that today, and hopefully that will help you along in your journey.